Hi everyone, welcome back to Kembara Zoo. I know I've been gone for quite some time now and I'll get back to that a bit later. But today we're finally back with another episode, and for this one we're actually going to try and create a bat cave for the Egyptian fruit bats. I've never really attempted doing something like this before, but as I'm sure you can imagine, it's going to be a lot of rock work. And at the end of the episode, we're also gonna look at naming the building or a restaurant with the Komodo dragons. Of course, using the great suggestions that some of you sent in a few, well, not a few weeks, a while back. Okay, so I really want to make the bat cave over here, and then we can sort of connect this lower area with the top area here, just so that we get a nice transition. And I'm also thinking of maybe having a waterfall, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna do this yet. But yeah, I think we'll just have to try and then hopefully it works out. So to start off the cave area, I thought it would be a good idea to create the inside cave top or ceiling first, just because it can be a bit tricky to place a lot of items when you have to turn the camera upwards in a really tight space. So I'm just placing down a bunch of rocks from the Twilight pack here, and I wouldn't really recommend doing it this way if you're using the same method as me, because this is a lot of rocks, and we're going to blend them in with the terrain later, since this will end up being sort of a mountain type cave. So that means that a lot of the rocks that I'm placing down here actually just gets hidden inside of the mountain, and then some of them are poking out. So if you're trying to minimize how many items you use to keep the game running smoothly and you don't want too much lag, then this method will not do you any favors. I didn't really have any issues with it, but it's still something I would suggest to keep in mind. So once I felt the shape and size was somewhat okay, I used it as a guide to map out where the path would go. Then I also decided that I wanted to have a waterfall in the cave, and then we'll have that leading out to a little pond in the middle here. And I actually got the idea to add a waterfall from watching Kelly Eveningstorm's video that she made a few months back, and I just have to say her work is absolutely amazing in general, and I can't even imagine how many hours went into making that bat cave. So if you want some more inspiration for your next bat cave, I'll leave a link to her video down below. But yeah, I also realized the waterfall needs a water source, so we're adding a small pond at the top here as well. And as always, I'm using the glass barriers in an attempt to make the transition look better, but I had some issues with it, and instead of fixing it, I decided we could just hide it with some rocks later anyways. And for the look of the waterfall, I actually took inspiration from a real cave that I found some pictures of on Google. So if you're curious, it's called the Lost Canyon Cave, and it's located in Branson, Missouri. I thought the rock formation was so cool there because it had this almost like staircase edge, I guess. So that's kind of what I'm attempting to recreate with the rocks here. And the real cave actually looked really cool, and I think you could get tickets to go see it. So I'm actually kind of disappointed I don't live in the US now. But yeah, if any of you live near Branson, then please go there and let me know how it is. Anyways, got a bit sidetracked there, but yeah, we're just finishing up with the rocks here before we then move on to adding the waterfall effects. And like I said previously, the edge here is absolutely horrible, so we're just adjusting the placement of the effects before we finally get to cover it up with some more rocks. And I think the waterfall actually ends up being my favorite part of this build. I mean, I am happy with the cave itself as well, it's just something about staring at your own work for hours on end that makes you go a little bit blind at a certain point. And at the end of the build, I was just so tired of placing down rocks because I felt like it was never gonna end. But eventually it did, and hopefully you'll see what I mean later, because it's just so many rocks. We're just about to finish up with the waterfall here, just adding the last few effects to hide any gaps, and also making sure that we have a natural looking flow at the bottom as well. And so before we start making any walls and get started on making the actual cave, I had to place down the exhibits to make sure that it would be enough space for them. And we also need to get some power going before we can get our bats. So what I didn't realize until I was basically finished with the whole cave is that I chose a wind turbine to be inside of the cave, and obviously there is no wind in a cave, so we do end up switching it out later, but I think I cut it out of the video, so I just thought I'd mention it. And now you can see we finally have our bats taken care of. They're all nice and settled in the exhibits, so it's time to get started on the cave. As you can see, I'm just removing a few of the rocks here because I thought it was a bit too much with so many of the large spikes we used. And then I cover up the holes with some regular rocks instead, which was just completely unnecessary since we'll be covering it up with the terrain later on either way. And then the roof part also wasn't big enough to go completely around the exhibit. We're just duplicating some of the roof parts here to make sure that everything fits properly. And like I said previously, I've never made a cave in Planet Zoo, and I was kind of just figuring stuff out as I went along. So when you see me starting on the terrain here, it's really a trust the process kind of thing because it starts out really bad. But we're gonna turn it into a mountain later, so the exterior really isn't something we need to worry about quite yet. I kind of just wanted to get the walls up and going so that we could start working on the inside area. So once we get started in the cave, I made sure to drag some of the roof terrain inwards so that it looks a bit more uneven and not too much like it's been man-made. Then I started on the rock work on the ground here, which was quite okay because for the most part I could just duplicate the same pieces around while also keeping in mind to rotate them as I went along. And I also tried to get some height and color variations, and I didn't really want to overdo it with too many rocks on the ground level. I mean, it's a lot of rocks, of course, but it's not like completely covered in them at least. Also needed to make a bridge over the water as well as connect the staircase, and I somehow managed to make it look really easy in the edit here, but I actually struggled with this part for a long time before I could get it to look the way I wanted it to. So once we're finally done with all of these rocks here, I needed to find a way to hide the power source, which is still the wind turbine, but we're just gonna ignore that at the moment. But yeah, so I'm building a small shell to hide it in using mainly the faux rocks from the aquatic pack, and I just did my best to make it blend in as nicely as possible. But I think it looks better once we're done with the cave because we do add some warmer lights in here later on. Once we finish up here, I went back to fix some of the rocks that were poking out of the entrance area and then just overall trying to make some smoother transitions. I started a little bit on the rocks by the waterfall here as well, but I didn't really know what kind of look I was going for on the outside yet, so I decided to just take a break from the rocks in general and wanted to get started on shaping the mountain instead, just so that I could visualize a bit better how everything would eventually come together. And I'm not gonna explain too much of how I made the mountain because I already have a tutorial all about that on my channel, and it's pretty much the same method I always use. But yeah, I mainly use a combination of the terrain stamp tool and the chisel tool, and then some pushing and pulling, of course. So once that's all done, we're just gonna do some terrain painting, but we'll deal with the foliage a bit later. I had some issues earlier with not being able to customize the exhibits, so that's why I didn't remove the walls and stuff previously, but I restarted the game and then I could remove everything so that the bats can appear to fly around the whole cave. But this is where my rock nightmare really started, so while I'm just covering all the walls with rock after rock, I wanted to take a second to talk a bit about my YouTube channel because I know I've been gone for a while, and while I have had a lot of things going on, that has made it a bit tricky to find the time to make videos. I was also starting to feel like I was hitting this sort of creative block, I guess. And I should also note that Planet Zoo is a game that takes a lot of time to make videos on, because the whole process can take me anywhere from 15 to say 25 hours just for a single video, so it takes up a lot more time than it would to make content on other games. So when my creativity felt a bit blocked off, I was kind of losing a bit of motivation as well, and that's why I can't really promise to keep up with the weekly Planet Zoo videos right now. I've just started streaming on Twitch, so that's gonna take up some time going forward, and I'll definitely still post Planet Zoo videos, but it won't be as often as it used to. And I might also edit some streams into YouTube videos, so there could be a bit of change to the channel content going forward. But yeah, I'm not giving up on Planet Zoo, I just need to have some variations in what I do and how often I post those kind of videos. So that's basically it. I just wanted to give you a little update about this because I've had so much fun making these videos and getting feedback and support on the channel here, and I'm really excited to start making content again, even though it might take a bit of a different turn. So if any of you want to check out my streams, I'll leave a link to the Twitch account down below. We're gonna be playing a lot of cozy games as well as maybe some scary ones. I haven't really landed the schedule and plan completely yet, but you'll of course get updates on stream and in the Discord server. With that being said, let's get back to the build here. As you can see, we've added some cozy lights to give the cave a warmer look, and we're also adding some rocks to the water area as well. Then we of course can't forget the donation bins, because we gotta make sure we get some money in here. And I just recolored them to be black so that they blend in a bit nicer with the rest of the cave. And then it's finally time to get started on the entrance area. And at least for the top entrance here, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with it. But we end up making this sort of, I guess, shed looking build, or maybe like a barn look. I'm not entirely sure what you would call it, but we're just doing a very simple and classic shape here, so nothing complicated at all. We're mainly using the plaster pieces for the base of the build. For the roof here, I'm just using the Arctic wood roof. And then I also love the slat cladding pieces, so we're using the slat cladding panels and the beams just to add some texture and color variations here, as you'll see very soon. But from here on out, it's pretty self-explanatory what I'm doing. We're just finishing up the entrance here and then also adding some foliage to the mountain later on. So I'll just leave you with some music for now, and then I'll see you once we're ready for the cinematics. finally done. Feel free to let me know what you think down in the comments. I mean, it's my first cave and it could have been a lot worse. I'm pretty happy with the results, I think. There's just so many rocks everywhere. I hope you see what I mean by that. And like I said, the waterfall here is absolutely my favorite part. I'm really happy with that. But anyways, while we finish up with the cinematics here, I just want to say thank you to Alfred Supersauce and Sparrow for the name suggestions of the Komodo restaurant, which is now called Komodo Cafe and the Dragon's Den. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!